Hello, welcome to CryptoCoach365 day 89. Michael Tozoni here. Long day again. If I'm kind of winking, it's because it's been a very long day. I'm pretty tired. Mostly today was doing all the paperwork to finalize the close on my most recent purchase of a property down in Virginia. This one is going to be a rental investment property, so nice thing is I actually have a pretty good income already lined up for it, so at least this one will not have any issues. Really nice house, 4-bedroom, plenty of space, nice location, and I have tenants already lined up. They'll be paying a pretty good return, which will cover mortgage and then some. This is actually the property that I may consider sharing investment on later, but I'll have to post about that, as I said, later. T-shirt, by the way, it's by my favorite band. I'm not going to play their music, but it's one of those virtual bands, kind of like Gorillaz, which I'm sure everybody's heard of. This band in particular is called Studio Killers. They are also a combination of a virtual band of performers from UK, Denmark, and I believe Finland, and they do their own music, their own songs, and their own artwork too. So all the music videos you see online of there, including this t-shirt, is drawn by the lead singer, and her art is actually so good that it was actually featured in a national gallery in Helsinki, I believe. So yeah, Studio Killers is the name of it. They're actually currently my favorite band because they're also the song that they have, songs that they write. Some of them are kind of kitschy pop, but some of them are actually pretty high level, I guess. Well, I meant like you can tell that the songwriter is well read, let's say. Anyway, yeah, with regards to real estate, just lots of paperwork on closing this final property, sending sending checks to the title companies to finally close on it. It's another one right now we're buying with cash for now, so at least there was no issues with going through any kind of bank notary kind of crap that usually takes a lot longer. This house we actually were able to close on it in about a week for a change. First time I closed a house in a week, so yay. And besides that, paying my one of my contractors for another property, they claim they should be done by the end of this month, so I'll actually have 2 properties done by the end of the month. And then if things go well, we should be able to sell them in September, and then hopefully we can get, I'm hoping about $20,000 per property for here, so it'll be, unfortunately not much income in August, but then $40,000 all slammed in the same month in September. So looking forward to that. So kind of a political topic today. There's a lot going on social media and media in general, and just around the populace, with this idea of the more collectivist ideas, I guess you could say. There's a lot of people are promoting for something they call democratic socialism, which I still don't know what the difference is between plain old socialism and democratic socialism, other than maybe, as opposed to socialism being put as maybe they believe being enforced through or put into place through violence, and maybe they're hoping that democratic socialism will achieve the same kind of ideas through democracy, where people will vote to have all these free things, and then vote to have like businesses nationalized or other things that socialism does. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter if it's voted in or not, to actually implement any of this kind of stuff. People tend to like being rewarded for their work, and they tend to like having things. So in order to implement socialist ideas, you would still need a semblance of violence in order to actually enforce those things. even free healthcare and free education, you still need to pay for those things somehow. So you would still need to enforce taxes, maybe probably increase taxes, probably increase regulations and controls on certain businesses and stuff, and that'll likewise be will have to be through force, because taxation is never voluntary. The only reason we pay taxes is because we're afraid somebody's going to go after us. If you don't believe me, just look at how much people try to avoid paying taxes every April 15th. Everybody's trying to get as much of a tax return as they can, as opposed to adding more and more money. So yeah. The other idea that's floating around is this idea of universal basic income, where the idea is that everybody will have to pay taxes, and then that money will get redistributed equally among everybody, so that it doesn't matter what your income is. Everybody gets a certain basic level of income, so just enough to like pay for housing and food. Again, like socialism, it's a nice idea. Like, yeah, we have free necessities. Everybody gets things that we feel they're entitled to or have a right to, and there's no more poor people, and everybody's taken care of and stuff. But unfortunately, again, there are economics and markets, and really when I say economics, economics is a study of social structures and psychology, human psychology. That's really what economics is. And it does not quite work that way. There are issues of people not really wanting to do work that might not pay enough because they get enough pay as it is through universal basic income. I mean, there's a lot of issues with universal basic income, not just a disincentive to do work, but it will, anytime you do central planning for price fixing, in which case what it costs to live, I guess, you end up with massive market distortions. So for example, if everybody is able to afford housing at a certain rate, obviously all that housing will instantly get snapped up, and then housing prices will shoot up. Same for food, same for jobs, and it'll just have massive weird effects. Also, despite people claiming that we should have a universal basic income where everybody gets the same amount, obviously not everybody's not equal. Some people need more money and more help, some people need less, some people have more disabilities, some people need more help. So we'll still have like different means tested kind of things, and it'll just very likely end up with the same kind of bureaucracy we have now. But here's a nice thing. Cryptocurrencies, they are effectively like the purest form of capitalism, by which I mean that capitalism being private ownership and being able to trade without third-party interference. So when you own cryptocurrencies, you have completely personal, private, complete control of your ownership of your cryptocurrency. You have the private key, so you say whether it goes anywhere or not. You say, you even have a say on whether anybody knows you have that money or not. And when you trade, you're the one who says whether that money will go someplace or not. So even if some regulations or laws are enacted claiming that you can only send Bitcoin under such and such conditions, or only certain people are able to receive it, laws are completely ineffectual when it comes to the mathematics that Bitcoin is based on. If you create a transaction and broadcast it, it's going to execute regardless of what the laws say. So in that sense, cryptocurrencies allow both for private ownership that is totally uninhibited, and also allow for transactions which are totally impossible to interfere with. So as I said, it's like the purest, completely uncensorable form of capitalism that we have. And if these currencies end up taking over and becoming the dominant currency, what's going to happen is that, well, the main problem with any kind of collectivist or social program like the things that democratic socialists promise you, or universal basic income, or any kind of social programs that sound really nice, because like who wouldn't want to have free education and free housing and free healthcare and even free food, as USSR and even Venezuela tried it. But in order for that to happen, none of those things are actually free. They are things that somebody has to put labor into to make happen, or that somebody has to make labor for to generate, I guess, wealth or money, which is then later confiscated in order to pay for somebody else's labor to make the food. Because, I mean, we abolished slavery centuries ago, so it's not like we can basically force people to work to provide food and healthcare for no compensation, because that would literally be slavery. So because all socialist and collectivist programs still require money or wealth to actually pay for those quote-unquote free things, there still is a requirement of force in order to collect that money, because as we've learned through centuries of bad experiences, people do not like giving up what they have worked for. So, but where Bitcoin comes in is that in a cryptocurrency world, forcing people to give up what they have earned will become much, much more difficult. So in a way, a couple of videos actually a while ago, I mentioned that Bitcoin allows you to be politically neutral in a way. So like we have a lot of fights between far left and far right, and this political party wants this out of you and that political party wants that out of you. And Bitcoin allows you to just kind of step back and say, no, I don't want to participate. I'm going to be neutral. Unfortunately, in today's extremely skewed world, being politically neutral is kind of extreme on its own. But that's kind of what Bitcoin answers to regards to these possibly worrying democratic socialism or UBI or any of the other kind of collectivist ideas are. And to me, they're worrying because I am from USSR, and I have my parents, at least they have protected me pretty well, but my parents at least have, and my grandparents and the rest of my family have experienced a lot of the horrors of what collectivism usually results in. And right now we actually see the same horrors in Venezuela and even Puerto Rico, which is part of the US. I mean, the main reason that Puerto Rico is still having trouble is because the government there ended up nationalizing their electrical grid, and the government was pretty corrupt and inept, and because they were the only ones who controlled the electricity and energy, now that they fell apart, there's nobody to come in to replace them. It's the same deal that happened with Flint, Michigan, where water was run by government messed up, and there's no alternatives like you would have with in a competing market. But anyway, nice thing about all this stuff with the kind of a rising demand for more and more socialism or UBI or more of these collectivist programs is that as we transition more and more to cryptocurrencies, we put ourselves more and more in a position where those things are impossible to implement. So like I guess under democratic socialism, the idea is that the only thing that's keeping us from all this free healthcare and free education and free other things is that voters have refused to simply vote for them. And then if we simply vote for them, then we will just somehow have them. But unfortunately, to actually have them, we actually have to pay for them somehow. And in order to pay for them, we have to confiscate the money. But as I said, as we transition more and more to cryptocurrencies, being able to confiscate that money will become more difficult, or even in case of UBI, one of the ideas for how to pay for it was to have an inflationary currency. So as the currency would inflate, more money would be printed, that money would be distributed because inflation causes the value of the dollars to go down. Right now it's at 3%, so let's say we would have a constant inflation of 6% and that money would be distributed. That would in effect create like a 6% tax because all your money will decrease by 6%. That'll get redistributed to people as universal basic income. But even that idea would not really work anymore, because if you have a choice between holding money that will deflate at a 6% rate versus holding money that will grow in value, deflate, like Bitcoin at, I don't even know what it's going to grow in value. Right now it's ridiculous. It's like 200% a year or so, but I'm sure it'll come down. But basically, you have a choice of holding money that'll lose value. You spent a lot of work, a lot of time doing hard work. You fought for it, you earned the money, you have the money, and now that money is just sitting there losing value. Or you have an option where you have you worked for that money, and now that money is sitting there, it's actually gaining you value. Obviously, most people, probably all people, will choose the money that is gaining value and will completely abandon the money that is inflationary. So in that sense, any kind of inflationary based collectivist idea, like that version of universal basic income, would simply not be possible to implement as well. But anyway, long story short, because of the way that Bitcoin is structured, hopefully in the long run, or hopefully in the shorter run, this whole kind of scary idea of people wanting to have more collectivism will it'll probably never fade away, because the ideas of just getting free stuff for doing nothing are just too tempting for people. But at the very least, it will not be a threat, simply because they will not be possible to implement. And again, another kind of a reason why I am really hoping to get Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and decentralized technologies in general spread out around the world, to kind of free people from this, what is effectively oppression of bad ideas that what the saying I keep saying, road to hell paved with good intentions. That's what those ideas basically are. So yeah, nice to, as somebody who actually knows what the outcomes of those ideas are, I'm sure a lot of people have the same kind of understanding and the same fears. At least for me, since I understand what crypto is leading to, that's also one less concern to have. So, I mean, worst case scenario, also definitely experienced by some people who knew what they were doing in Venezuela. Worst case scenario, if something really, really bad happens where the country is taken over by a democratically elected socialist like Hugo Chavez and Maduro, which is, I mean, Venezuela is technically still democratic socialism. If that happens and you have Bitcoin, worst case scenario, you can still just leave. There's a strategy of exit. Take all your money with you, because again, nobody can take your Bitcoins with you or stop you from moving them, or pretty much doing anything with them you don't want to. So, you know, it basically, if you are concerned about any kind of socialism or collectivism, Bitcoin is pretty much the answer to keep yourself protected and kind of stay neutral in the whole thing, if you wish to stay neutral and not be affected by it. So yeah, anyway, that's it for today. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be the actual closing on my property. That in the morning, and then in the evening I'll be taking off for Chicago, where I am going to be having a 2-day seminar with JT Fox, which I definitely can't wait to see him again, because he's had quite a bit of interesting stuff happen. By the way, if you're interested in what's going on with him, he was the one who inspired this. Well, he inspired and actually told me I should to do this CryptoCoach365 thing that I'm doing. In part, it's to kind of create content to teach about what I know and what I do and how to do what I do to other people, because I mean, as I mentioned, as you've probably seen, I know like a lot of stuff about cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I know a lot about money and wealth. I know a lot about economics, and I know a lot about really weird, obscure stuff like computers and beekeeping and piloting and building planes, and I even know like martial arts, like katana type stuff, whatever. But part of that is to share knowledge. The other part is to practice speaking and just having an experience of being able to talk and tell stories and interact, and it has actually helped a lot. So I mean, JT definitely knows what he's doing, but he has one of these things himself. It's JT365. I believe it's still $50 that he charges for the whole thing. But the interesting thing with his version of it is that he's he's not a billionaire yet, but he's definitely way up there. He does these things every single day. Sometimes he has assistants do them for him. Well, not assistants, he's like CEO, company CEO. But it's kind of like with me, you get to follow somebody who's a crypto millionaire who has kind of recent successes building up businesses. With him, you get to follow somebody who is at a very high level, almost a billionaire, has like about 50 different companies, travels all the time, works all the time, and actually does coaching, like very high level business coaching and training and education for pretty high level people with pretty high level people already. So it's kind of like you're getting personal insight into a very wealthy high level businessman that you can follow every day, who can also teach you and sometimes inspire you, or you can see what kind of weird ass drama he has to deal with as well. So yeah, JT365 is a thing. I've been following it since the beginning. It's I think it's for $50. It's definitely worth it considering the information you get. But yeah, so, and this weekend I'll be getting to learn from him in person, so definitely looking forward to that. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Good night.